Mornings filled with meaningful business talk.
Giving you useful advice on how to win at your career.
I am Randy Bernardino.
And I am Mayan Manzano Garzon, and this is
Daily Insight.
Now let's go to the trending business news around the world.
First off, Alphabet Google shows profits. Google parent Alphabet reported higher profits and revenues in the first quarter, even though there has been a slump in advertising. The earnings have eased fears that the pandemic would devastate digital ad revenue, which is the internet firm's income engine. Chief Executive Sundar Pichai said that we've marshaled our resources to assist people during the crisis. Google has also teamed up with longtime rival Apple to develop technology for coronavirus smartphone contact tracing. The app will show when people have crossed paths with an infected person. Now, Mayan, it's surprising that Google is actually showing profits because they said that they've hit a slump in their ad revenue, which is really their primary source of revenue for their company.
That's true, Randy, but it's not surprising in a way too, because Google is such a big company, and Google is like, everyone is like online now. So I believe they're still really earning profits. And also I like the fact that they're actually partnering with their rival Apple to help with the coronavirus issues by making this app for like contact tracing, right?
Yes. I wonder though, if you download the app while you're walking and then someone just pops up, you're like, oh, do I avoid that person? Or it's like, it raises some privacy issues maybe, because if you've been infected, I don't think you want other people to know, right?
That's true. But if you're that of a private person, I guess you won't download the app then.
No, because I wanted to keep it secret, but we'll see if it's successful, and maybe it might help to actually flatten the curve. U.S. Airlines announced new policies. Major U.S. airlines announced new health and safety measures to protect in-flight personnel and passengers from the coronavirus as states begin lifting restrictions. Delta Airlines said that all employees and partners will be required to wear masks in case they cannot maintain social distancing. Mandatory masks for cabin crew are in line with the recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, to prevent transmission of COVID-19. Earlier in April, United Airlines began automatically assigning seats on flights to help maintain social distancing. United will also limit advanced seat selection and board fewer passengers at a time to prevent any crowding as people take their seats. The policies will remain in place until May 31st. Now, Mayan, I know that with flights, that's what a lot of people are waiting for, to be able to travel again. But we all know that the reason why the coronavirus spread to so many countries was because people were flying internationally.
Yes.
And now to open this up again, it's good to know that there are some guidelines and it's just not a free for all, people flying in wherever they want to go.
Next business news, YouTube expands fact check panels. YouTube began adding fact check panels to search results in the US for videos on hot topic claims shown to be bogus. The Google-owned video streaming service said it is expanding to the US. A fact check information panel feature launched last year in Brazil and India. The panels highlight credible findings by third parties so YouTube viewers can make informed decisions about claims, according to the company. YouTube described the fact check feature as part of ongoing efforts to raise the profile of authoritative sources while reducing the spread of misinformation.
Well, that's good to know, Mayan, because I know there's so many people spreading fake news, rumors, unverified information. At least now we know that YouTube is removing these fake stories. Now for our last news, Japan Group offers retro consoles to cooped-up kids. A group of Japanese retro video game enthusiasts is hoping that lockdown-induced boredom will convert today's children into fans of yesteryear's games, offering 100 classic Nintendo consoles. The nonprofit Japan Retro Game Association announced on its website that it would send Super Nintendo consoles to 100 households with children under the age of 16. It is offering the classic consoles complete with adapters, cables, controllers, and two masterpiece games, Super Donkey Kong and Final Fantasy VI. The association says the consoles are secondhand and have some marks or scratches, but have been restored for play, as well as cleaned and disinfected as much as possible. Now, Mayan, I know it's, for me personally, I did play Super Nintendo and all of the old PlayStation.
I wish I'm under 16 to receive all these stuff from Nintendo.
Yeah, all of these kids, they're in for a treat. Hopefully, they'll share the same fascination like we did when we were kids.
That's true. I'm so happy to know and to read all these news because the companies are really doing their, say, like corporate social responsibility,
Yes.
making kids happy, making the people happy, spread positivity and all those sort. And it's just so nice to see that we are reusing the secondhand consoles instead of just, them being thrown to the landfills.
Yes. So those are our trending business news for today.
Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Daily Insight. As we all know, we are facing a very unique situation right now. We are all affected by this COVID-19 pandemic one way or another. So for today's episode, we have invited a financial educator to discuss a very relevant and timely topic, which is about managing our finances during this time. Let us welcome Ms. Yunice Garcia. Hi, Ms. Yunice. How are you?
I'm doing very good, man.
Would you like to give a little information po about you and how you're qualified to give this advice?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, it's my honor and privilege to be part of the show. And my little bit of my background is that I'm in a financial service industry for over 10 years now. And currently, I have a practice in state of New Jersey, both for profit and in a nonprofit organization, which is a 501c3. So financial literacy is one of the major endeavor or a mission that we have as an organization across North America.
But now, Ms. Yunice, can you share some ways or tips on how we can manage our finances during this time? As we all know, a lot of us lost our job, or many also have suffered a cut from their salary or from their hours of work. So how can we handle our finances during this time?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, man, because actually we have this recent survey in North America that are facing financial challenges even before this pandemic. So actually the US it has a 33% or more than 77 million of Americans don't pay their bills on time before even this happened. There's actually 39% carry credit card debt from month to month. And only 59% of adults say they have savings. So less than 50% of Americans doesn't have any save. And worse, more than half think it's acceptable to default their mortgage if they cannot pay for it. And now, actually, the most recent survey that we had is that there's a 30 million applicant for unemployment. And some people are still applying because of this pandemic. So it's, again, it's very timing for us to find out what are the essential tips or resources that we should have during this time of this crisis. So the first thing that I'd like to share is about how can we keep our finances healthy during the pandemic? Mm-hmm. The first thing is the short-term financial tips that I have is that we shouldn't ignore COVID-19 notification from our financial providers. You will see on our emails about the subject line of COVID-19, and majority of us just ignore it because it's all over the place in the news. But actually, it's very important for us to pay attention to that because the notification may updates about operating hours, what services that they offered, and most financial services providers are encouraging to use online and mobile services, such as, you have your mobile deposit, you have your, instead of going to the bank, you sign up for auto pay or direct debit from your accounts to pay your bills. And you use, sometimes they have this online chat that you can ask some general questions to the representative, because majority of them are also working from home, their staff. So that's an easy way for us to get some answer. The second short-term financial tips that I have is that if your income has been affected by COVID-19, you have to initiate to contact your creditors or lenders. Because most credit card companies and lenders are encouraging customers to contact them if they anticipate trouble making payments. So companies that everyone from hospitality workers to teachers may see their income significantly reduced during this time. They recognize this may cause financial difficulties. Instead of avoiding a creditor or lender, contact them immediately. They may be able to help with temporary arrangement to reduce or hold your payments until your income returns to normal. So the third one is that avoid panic purchasing. Mm-hmm. So as we see the news, a lot of people are reacting about, panic, purchasing. So this actually, some store may be running low or out of everything from surgical masks, hand sanitizer, or even toilet paper and food. It is tempting to think that you need to buy everything you can before there's nothing left. However, this is counterproductive. Panic purchasing leads to shortages, and this eventually leads to necessary items no longer being available for those in need, such as surgical masks and for medical staff who are, the frontliners. You are also likely to incur credit card debt buying items that you may or may not need. And stores are also sending out notification about their operating hours and what measures they are taking to ensure products are in stock. If stores in your area plan to stay open, there is no need to overspend for closures that may never happen. So when shopping, make sure to be practical. Take proper measure to protect yourself, such as wearing gloves while you shop, or use hand sanitizer or sanitizing what's provided at the store. And I think the fourth short-term tips that I have, which is I really encourage, is that if you are confined at home, so we are in SIP, sheltered in place, take some time to build financial literacy with your family. If you're following the advice to stay at home as much as possible, then you will need things to do to keep yourself entertained. Take a break from streaming, watching news, COVID-19 headlines, improve your financial knowledge, and learn how about to budget better, how to begin investing, and smarter strategies for managing debt. Actually, May and I have worksheets and exercises for a family, for them to keep up with their expenses, as well as to understand how to calculate their net worth, which is most people, when they ask what is your net worth, they don't even know how to calculate, and they don't know even how to figure out what is their net worth. So those are my short-term tips during this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Yunice, for the first part of your tips. So those are the short-term tips that you have given us. You mentioned that if your income has been affected by COVID-19, call your creditors and lenders. If I request for say this month, there's no certainties yet when I'm going back to work. If I request for 1 more month or 2 more months, would they be able to allow me for as long as I needed?
Well, as of the announcement of the federal government about this sheltered in place, these lockdowns from places that we know and we're part of it, is that they actually provided some relief or some sort of assistance from your credit cards, from your mortgage, from your auto lender. That if you call them and reach out to them and tell them that, hey, because of this situation, I have some, difficulties on, catching up my bills, they will automatically give you an options for that. And they're usually pretty quick with that, because it's a federal advice to these financial institutions to provide assistance to the public. So I even actually call personally and find out what are those in my my personal bank and other creditors that I have. And it's pretty quick. When you call them, they will tell you, okay, don't worry about this. Actually, the longest assistance that I found that it's effective is until July. But please don't quote me on that, because every financial institution has a different way of restructuring this type of assistance.
That's right. That's very helpful. And it's good, and it's very helpful that you mentioned that you yourself contacted your creditors and lenders, as including your bank. And I believe that all banks are doing this, all creditors, all companies are doing this. They are all doing their share in helping during this time of pandemic. Also, Ms. Yunice, you mentioned on your fourth tip that to take this opportunity, to take this time that we were all staying at home, to educate ourselves about finances, about financial literacy. What do you think will be the wise investment that we can do during this time, if there's any?
That was actually a really good question, because there is actually that financial concept that I usually teach my student and the families that I'm serving. The first thing actually, that before actually even thinking about investment, we have to actually understand how to build our financial foundation. So it's just like, building a house, that you should start solid from ground up. So actually the order on that is that you have to protect, you have to make sure that you have your protection. And then after that, you manage your debt. And then you must have your emergency fund. And that's the time that you invest. Because with what current happened right now, if all your assets are all in an investment, for example, it's relying heavily on the market performance. As we all know, the market actually kind of goes south. So, and if your assets are all on those investments, what if, God forbid, somebody gets sick in the family, get disabled, and you have this debts, and you don't have an emergency fund? So we usually, what we do is that we help the family that we serve to, build a strong financial foundation by creating a strong protection. We help them manage their debt or eliminate their debt by creating an emergency fund, which is supposedly it's at least 3 to 6 months, and a well-funded emergency fund is up to a year. And then eventually, once we're all set on those 3 areas of your finances, we help them how to grow their money or their asset. It's also important, but the thing is that we should be more educated before we even get to investment or money. But there's a lot of products and services out there. I actually have a lot of inquiries regarding investment of people, because majority of people right now are getting emotional. They thought that because the market goes up, they have to, pull their money and put it somewhere. So that's emotional investing. So it's not actually an ideal way to treat this kind of crisis right now. That's why it's very important for us to be educated, so that if this thing happen again, then we know that we're in good shape, and we have all our bases that's in place.
Thank you, Eunice. For the first areas that you've discussed, before we even think of investing, is to, settle your debts first and all that. I think that's very important, that we don't really go into investing without this knowledge. And thank you so much for also reminding that don't invest during this time, because we're highly emotional. Even though you're educating us right now on how to invest, how to manage our finances, you're also giving us the reality that it's not wise to invest right at this moment, when we are not very stable with our emotions. Now, Ms. Yunice, you've discussed the 4 short-term tips on how to manage our finances during this time of pandemic. Now, when we come back, we will discuss more of your ways on how to deal with our finances during a pay cut. We will be right back. Welcome back to Daily Insight. We will learn more about our topic today, managing your finances during a pay cut or during this time of pandemic. Welcome back, Ms. Yunice. What are the long-term financial tips that you can give us on this part of our episode?
Okay, so here are the long-term financial tips that we gathered. Well, as you know, the long-term economic effect of COVID-19 may be far-reaching. It is possible another global recession will be triggered. As a result, it's important to shore up your finances against long-term economic instability. So the first long-term tips that we usually help to serve the families that we serve is that to help them reduce expenses to increase savings and avoid new credit card debt. So taking on a credit card debt is in an unstable economy is never a good idea. So actually, we usually tell them you need to do your plastic surgery during this time. So we help them cut their credit card so they're not going to use that anymore. So the last thing you need is a higher bills that take up more of your budget. Instead, free up as much as cash flow as possible to pad your savings. You should review your budget carefully and any expenses you can afford to cut back. This will help reduce the total expenses in your budget and leave more income to pay off debt or put into savings. And this will help you avoid need to use more credit card. I actually personally teach a workshop about debt management, and there are actually 26 ways that you can actually find money that you don't know that you have. Just, figuring out what are your expenses, what are your essential bills or expenses that you have to spend for.
Miss Eunice, we should have another episode for that.
Okay.
That is very interesting, Miss Eunice. You mentioned to reduce expenses during this time and increase your savings. Now, what other ways or other tips can you give our viewers on how we can actually reduce our expenses at home?
Actually, personally, I call my my auto insurance company. Okay, as we know, we are sheltered in place way back March, and we're not driving. So I was actually calling them and find out if there's any way that I can lower down my premium because I'm not driving. And as you know, in the state of New Jersey, our auto premium is not cheap. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So when I called them and I told them that because of the situation, I actually find out with my auto insurance carrier that they're actually giving up 15% of my premium back. That's a lot of money. And we usually don't get that. So imagine that additional $200, $300 just by contacting your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance company that can give you this type of assistance during this time. So that's instantly $200, $300 that the money you don't know that you have.
Correct. So to our viewers, don't forget to call your auto insurance right after this episode and see how much you can get back from your premium. Thank you so much, Ms. Eunice. Now on the next tip, long-term tip.
All right, so we have to focus on paying off your established debt. So an economic downturn might lead to higher unemployment, as we all know, meaning less job security for everyone. In a volatile economy, it is best to reduce your debt as much as possible. The best way to reduce existing credit card debt is by using an avalanche or snowball strategy for debt reduction. Prioritize your credit card balances for repayment from either highest to lowest APR or lowest to highest balance. Actually, this is very important to know. Majority of people doesn't know their APR actually of their credit cards. And if you owe more than $10,000, you may need to consider more aggressive strategies. So look into those options for debt consolidation or contact a credit counselor to discuss your option with a certified professional.
Now, Ms. Eunice, I just have one question regarding this tip that you just gave. Now, if I was already experiencing financial hardship even before this pandemic, And now more than ever, I'm experiencing hardship and difficulties in paying off my debt. Now, how can I approach my creditors during this time? Because if I have still the willingness to, pay for my debt, even partially, how can I communicate or approach my creditor at this time?
Well, man, that's a really good question about this tip because everything else with what's going on, it's all about communication. Our creditors, our lenders, their lines are still open, they're operating, and all you have to do is to really communicate to them and tell them what's your story and what is your plan of action. And majority of them is offering some sort of assistance that can help you, get through this crisis. And then eventually they usually offer you some kind of terms according to how much you can afford to pay. So I think the most important to them is that if you are communicating to them and not just ignoring whatever their notices or mails about, whatever debts that you have, they're very open for a negotiation. It's all about communication and negotiating with them, and so that you make them feel that risk that you're gonna run away and just forget about this. They don't want that. They want you to communicate and tell them your story.
Right. So the key now during this time is actually communication. Communicate with your creditor and let them know what's happening with your finances, with your life, and expect that they will actually give you advice and give you some leeway on how to settle your debt. Now, Ms. Yunice, what else can you give our viewers in terms of long-term financial tips?
Okay. The next tip is still expand your emergency savings fund. In a normal economy, experts recommend that you have 3 to 6 months of bills and other budgeted expenses in savings. This will allow you to weather a period of unemployment or fewer hours of work without relying on credit cards. During an economic downturn or a more severe financial upset like this, you should expand your financial safety net even further. Ideally, 6 to 12 months of savings is suggested. This will help you cover any cut hours or loss of business COVID-19 may cause.
Ms. Yunice, how can you differentiate savings fund versus emergency fund? Because earlier during the start of our episode, you've mentioned that a certain number of population here in the US actually don't have savings. Now, how can they start with emergency fund during this time?
Well, starting building your emergency fund is not actually putting a huge lump sum of money on it. Well, first of all, in order for you to establish that is that you must open an account that you cannot easily liquidate. It's not your savings account that you have a debit card attached on it. It's not your checking account. Emergency fund is, it will take some sort of effort before you can even access it. So you will see yourself that, you know what, I'm not going to spend that because I cannot even touch it. So that kind of accounts. So, starting an emergency fund is, just simply you start with $100 that you cannot touch whatever happens. It's emergency. A sale purse in Macy's is not an emergency. Okay, so that's not something that you will use, and then eventually it will compound. The next month you have an extra $50 here, then put it again to your emergency fund until you say, oh, I have already 2 months emergency fund. God forbid something would happen, then I know I have some sort of savings. So it's when it comes to liquid assets such as your savings or checking account, where your your fixed bills, your regular bills that you're using that account for, that it's separate, something that you can liquidate at any time you can withdraw.
All right. So emergency fund is something that you're committed to not touching whatever happens. Touch it because it's only for emergency and it's not easily liquidated. Now we have a last tip for this part of the program, Ms. Yunice. What is it?
All right, we're in the last part. There's actually so many, but this is one of the things that's very important for people to consider is to understand life insurance. So life insurance isn't a funny topic, but it's a critical part of your financial strategy. People don't often talk about it. Most don't understand about it. Few want to buy it, but even those people who buy it don't necessarily understand or appreciate its importance in building and preserving wealth. As a result, a lot of people don't have any life insurance protection. If they do, most don't have enough. Today, people have all kinds of protection. They insure their house, their cars, their phones, and appliances. They even buy travel insurance for their vacation. But when it comes to life insurance, people remain skeptical. The most important insurance that you protect your family and their children is not taken seriously. So life insurance doesn't insure your life. It's ensure your family's ability to continue on without being financially devastated.
All right, your last tip, Miss Eunice, is understand life insurance. At this time of pandemic where everyone is really having a hard time managing their finances, would it still be advisable to avail life insurance during this time?
Well, definitely. Unfortunately, majority of the population, when they're experiencing financial hardship, this is the first thing that they cut on their budget. Actually, that's a huge mistake because we have to understand that the ability for you to create or to provide income to your family is your ability to work. So imagine if the breadwinner of the family unfortunately lost their lives for whatever reason, whether there's a COVID or some sort of accident or some sort of illness. So if that income was gone, that's gone. And there's so many products and services out there when it comes to life insurance platform that we can actually take advantage of. And especially nowadays that people are living longer, all the more that we really have to take seriously of understanding what kind of options, what kind of suitability, what kind of affordability that we can get and provide for our family, a protection for our family that we can sustain. So it's just a matter of communicating with your with a financial professional on what are your options. So, but you know, don't let thinking that, you know what, it doesn't matter. I don't have, it doesn't matter that I don't own that. It's very important. There's a lot of things that people has to understand what would be the value of having your family protected, especially with this kind of pandemic that we have and the crisis that we have, that we don't even know if there's going to be a vaccine or a, or a medicine, and God forbid, you know, one of our family got inflicted with this virus. I mean, what will happen? So it's just a matter of understanding what are our options, and one of it is, you know, having a strong protection by purchasing a life insurance.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Eunice Garcia, for sharing all of your knowledge and tips on how we can keep our finances healthy during this time of pandemic.
Absolutely. This is a great opportunity for us to understand these things, and hopefully, you know, this will give value to the viewers that we have with Daily Insights. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Eunice.
All right.
We hope that you've learned something from today's episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next time. These are mornings filled with meaningful business talks, giving you useful advice on how to win at your career. I am May Ann Manzano Garzon, and this is Daily Insight.